Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. I am struggling with flu. I hope you will journey with me with my hoarse voice through this conversation. The topic I've been given is building a better society, investing in people, promoting inclusion, and building social capital. It's indeed an honor to be re-invited to the Nelson Mandela Bay Leadership Summit. But I come to you virtually with mixed emotions. Firstly, because I'm coming back to my hometown. Because of this town, I am what I am today. Because I'm a product of the generosity of many people who saw potential in me and invested time, energy, and resources for me to be the best I can be. But I'm also coming back virtually to a town as a former anti-apartheid activist that seems to have stood still. It's still characterized by huge inequalities, poverty, unemployment, and a huge leadership vacuum from those expected to lead the city to prosperity. So I thought, rather than a speech, I'd like to share some issues with you that I'm grappling with so that we can grapple with them together in a spirit of inquiry, knowledge sharing, and scholarship. I'd like to address the three themes that I've been asked to address. Firstly, building a better society through effective and competent leadership. In one of her briefings to Parliament, the Auditor General of South Africa reported that just more than a quarter of South Africa's municipalities, or 27%, admit themselves that they don't know if they can continue. Almost 1 in every 4 councils of 57 fail to deliver any kind of financial statement by the statutory audit deadline. The AG said they believe this number could be much higher, as some financial statements were not submitted for different reasons. The report further indicates, ladies and gentlemen, a staggering 26 billion rands in irregular expenditure at municipalities in the year 2019-2020. This irregular expenditure was incurred in 246 of the 278 municipalities across South Africa. 246 of the 278 municipalities across South Africa. The ugly news is that 22 councils countrywide with disclaimed audit outcomes, the worst possible. They went through almost 5.5 billion without being able to say where the money went. If you put this differently, of the 6.45 billion taxpayers' money sent to municipalities, only 980 million remained by the year end. In the scary words of the Attorney General, she said, nobody is reporting, nobody is accounting, nobody is sure where the money went. This has 3 profound implications. Firstly, any investor or potential investor cannot decide whether to stay in a municipality like that or invest their money in that municipality. Secondly, municipalities fail to recover what's owed to them from rates, electricity tariffs, and other levies. And therefore, they end up owing money to other institutions. And we see a delay in payments to suppliers. The bottom line is that revenue not collected, creditors not paid, means councils are in deficit. Lastly, and probably more frightening, 46% of equitable share grants and other monies meant for maintenance and for service delivery are instead diverted to pay the salaries of admin staff and councillors. Maintenance and service delivery does not happen. Poverty and unemployment and underdevelopment increases, and community anger and frustration grows. With only 10.5% of the country's 257 municipalities receiving a clean audit, it is evident that the financial situation is dire, with a lack of accountability among officials, both elected and appointed. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges of mismanagement, lack of financial accountability, unauthorized expenditure, tender rigging, corruption, and malfeasance are not only limited to the local government sphere. The provincial and national governments have also been found wanting. Excuse me. As this city faces a huge water crisis, I ask myself the question, is this at the top of the agenda of elected public officials? Are the municipal officials competent and focused on this matter? Is the business community rallying around for more innovative solutions? Are community organizations and leaders alerting their communities about the dangers ahead? Are we sure that the corrupt and criminal elements will not use this crisis to enrich themselves? This crisis will truly lay bare the capacity of this wonderful city to rise up as one and develop a multi-pronged plan to lead the city through this crisis. The city of Cape Town faced a similar crisis in 2018. The question is, are there any lessons to be learned from the city of Cape Town? Are those lessons being learned by the leadership and residents of the city? But if you think the challenges are only, rest you know that we have challenges in the private sector as well. Big business has not emerged from the Zondo Commission report with a glowing track record. It shows that it has been ensnared again in sophisticated corruption that has turned South Africa into an environment of lawlessness. Arguably, the Zondo Commission report underscores that it took complicit private sector to make state capture possible and facilitate transactions in which billions of rands were siphoned off from state coffers to benefit a coterie of politically connected individuals. The modus operandi of the state capture enablers in the private sector was clear. Big business actively weakened and repurposed state institutions of accountability or turned a blind eye to question transactions and willfully translated them. This is the picture we're finding ourselves. We cannot build a society unless both in the public sector and in the private sector, at national, provincial, and local government, and in our communities, we have ethical and incorruptible leaders. We now, ladies and gentlemen, have to be vigilant about how wealth has been accumulated, how a company's profits have been achieved, how a leader is elected to office, how qualifications are obtained, how material possessions such as cars, houses, and clothes have been bought. We can no longer plead ignorance or pretend to be blind nor deaf to the daily stories of corrupt businessmen, shady entrepreneurs, crooked politicians, and unethical corporates. When we discover corruption or unethical conduct in our companies, in our councils, in our businesses, will we keep quiet? Will we look the other way? Will we blame the media or blame political opponents? Every rand lost through corruption, through unauthorized expenditure, through fruitless expenditure, is a rand that could make a huge difference in addressing unemployment, underdevelopment, poverty, and service development in our country. We need conscious, incorruptible, brave leaders across all aspects of society to say no more to corruption and unethical conduct. And this brings me then to the work that needs to be done. I go back to Ms. Maluleke, the Auditor General, and her profound words that we should heed, words that should reverberate throughout the country. And I quote, "It is the type of leader we deploy and appoint to specific roles that define how an institution runs. Without dealing with the quality of leadership that's in charge of institutions, we are not going to get this right." Let me repeat. Without dealing with the quality of leadership that is in charge of institutions, we are not going to get this right. This view is echoed by Mr. Joel Netitenza, who cautions organizations and institutions about the type of leaders they choose. And I will paraphrase him. A defective leadership not only holds back the attainment of national objectives, it also presents a difficult conundrum for an organization or institution, in that to rationalize its bad choices, the institution or organization has to lower itself to embrace those defects of the leader it has chosen as its own defects. Steadily, these defects of the individual become, by default, the collective property of the organization, its own blind spot and subliminal attributes in the public eye. This is what we're grappling with. The people we promote, the people we elect, the people we appoint, the people who lead us, if they are not the right people, the institutions, whether in the public sector or private sector, will not deliver what is expected of them. This is so, ladies and gentlemen, because leaders cast a long shadow over the organizations they lead. Excuse me. Leadership therefore matters, and it matters a great deal. Character, integrity, and sound values matter even more. How many stories have we heard over the last 18 months of corruption, malfeasance, corporate greed, abuse of public funds, bribery, and racketeering? How many great names and great names of companies and great names of leaders who come with great struggle credentials, yet now find themselves in scandal because they could not make the right choices. They could not self-restrain. Each of us who are sitting in this virtual room or the physical room there could be captured tomorrow, could conduct ourselves in unethical ways, or could embarrass our families through scandals. What separates us from those who are already in scandal? I hope each one of us will learn something from a standard I have tried to live by. And it comes from two writers, Kauzes and Bosner. and they define leadership in this way. Each leader has to place the people at the center, be responsive to their needs, respectful of their wishes, and accountable to them. This requires us as leaders to be selfless in our contribution, inclusive in our decisions, humble in our behavior, and inspiring in our actions. If we do this, our joy will not be how exalted we may be, not how elevated our positions are, not how much wealth we can amass, not how much power we can have. It must come from a deeper and special place where others benefit, grow, or prosper because of our actions. That's true leadership. When we look around today, in our corporates, in our municipalities, in our national government, provincial government, political parties, how much of this do you see? Do we see these lofty ideals, or do we see a selfishness, a propensity to loot, the idea that resources that belong to a company or belonging to the people or belonging to a municipality or government belong to me and my family? How do we make sure the next generation does not fall into this trap? I want to leave you with these questions on this issue of leadership. I personally was groomed by some of the best teachers, coaches, priests, and community leaders in the Gqeberha area. Are there still programs to identify and groom future leaders in Gqeberha today? 2, are the leaders being voted into council or into leadership positions of political parties the very best that this country can produce? Are they the very best that Gqeberha can produce? 3, do we elect or appoint people with unquestionable character, of upstanding values and morality, with proven track records, or are the electoral processes and promotions and appointment procedures already corrupted themselves? 4, how strong are our leadership and management programs in our centers of higher learning? Do they help the next generation of leaders deal and navigate with the over-complex world? And lastly, what percentage of the businesses that offer services to the government, be it local, provincial, or national, how many of these businesses are true businesses? Or how many of them are mere vehicles for money laundering, for the conduit or funding of political parties, or a mere thin veil hiding in plain sight that these are companies belonging to top politicians, civil servants, and their families and friends? So how can we rectify this as I get to the end? I'm reminded, ladies and gentlemen, of the seminal words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I quote. He says, when we look at modern men and women, we have to face the fact that modern men and women suffer from a kind of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to his or her scientific and technological abundance. We've learned to fly the air like birds. We've learned to swim the sea like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Our world is more polarized, more unequal, and there's greater divisions between those who are local versus those who are foreign. A widening gap between those who are educated, those who have little skills. a widening gap between business and labor, and growing conflicts along political, religious, and cultural lines. Over the last 10 years, we saw uprisings in the UK through Brexit, in the Middle East through Arab Spring, and then we saw the triumph of Donald Trump in the US. None of the elites in those environments, be they political elites or economic elites, could foresee what was happening. If we now bring it to South Africa, can the political and economic elites see the brewing anger that's in our society? Do we read anything from the recent xenophobia attacks? Do we read anything from the Fees Must Fall? Do we read anything from the Marikana massacre? Do we read anything from the riots in KZN? Are they not telling us a lesson that our society is not sustainable and something has to change? Many South Africans understand that this is not sustainable, but all of us are caught in a trap as individuals, as corporates, as business leaders, and civil society organizations. Excuse me. We know what needs to be done. Excuse me. We appreciate how difficult it will be. We dread how long it will take, and we are wary of the drain on resources and the time required to make this really work. The harsh reality is that these are our challenges, our common problem, and this is our country. And each and every one of us, particularly the economic and political elites, have to play a role to rebuild this society. The challenges we face are enormous. The path ahead is long and arduous, but as seductive as they may seem, shortcuts are not the answer. We as the elites, the most fortunate societal leaders, must engage our fellow South Africans who are less fortunate. We must demonstrate through words and even deeds that we hear their desperate cry as they toil daily through misery, poverty, and hardship. So what am I saying? I'm asking each and every one of us to realize that South Africa is at an inflection point. There are stark choices. Either we become a prosperous nation or a failed state. We cannot afford to fail. Each sector of society has to play its part. The community, civil society, big business, small business, local government, national government, and us as citizens have to play our part. If I talk about business, business has to play its part to create what is called shared prosperity, so that the success of business also means the success of society. For business to succeed when society is not succeeding is not sustainable. We need to find a way to see poor people not as victims or a burden on society, but as resilient and creative entrepreneurs and value-conscious consumers. This is what we need to do. But you may say, I am just one person. I just have one business. I already contribute my taxes. I want to remind you of the words of Robert Kennedy, who said, "It's time a man or a woman stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. I hope and I pray that each and every one of you today, or your companies, or in your personal capacity, will do much from today to improve the lot of others, to ensure that we live like brothers and sisters in the context of shared prosperity. I sincerely hope that your companies and businesses will use some of the best brains we have to develop solutions that will not only enhance your bottom line, but will also improve the lot of others. Maybe, just maybe, if we do those things, we as a country will avoid the fate that befell other countries. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, it is not slogans, it is not labels, it is not insults that will take us forward. It's new ideas, new partnerships, and new solutions from a range of stakeholders. In the words of the late Judge Arthur Chaskalson, what is demanded of South Africans is that we commit ourselves completely and wholeheartedly to the transformation that is to take place. This calls for more than pious statements or resolutions at ends of conferences. This is what we are obliged to do, and in good conscience, we can do no less. Those terms. I want to say loudly and strongly, no South African, no matter how influential, no political party, no matter how powerful, no group, no matter how strong, can build our society on its own. To build this society, we will have to draw on the energy, passion, commitment, capabilities, and promises of all of our people. Our people may have vastly different experiences, interests, hopes, fears, aspirations, and views. Our duty as leaders is to build on what they have in common, a deep desire for a better future, a powerful yearning to live in peace and harmony, and a fervent hope to a brighter future for their children. Let us be the vision and the rallying cry to make this a better place. I want to leave you with this old African proverb. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. May we leave no one behind. Let us build a better future for our children. Let us be the example that the world used to look at. As we face the next 28 years, let's regain the great promise we held for the world. Let's reclaim the status we had among the nations of the world. Let's create a nation that everyone can be proud of. May each one find their own color in our rainbow. May more of our people find a place at our prosperity table. And may all of our people see themselves in the picture of the future we are creating. Our country's beauty will be enhanced when we share it. Its riches will be preserved if more benefit from them. And our flag will fly much higher when more pay allegiance to it. South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Let us not exclude anyone. Let us not leave anyone behind. Let us make everyone feel a sense of belonging, pride, love, and loyalty. I thank you.